Hello, and thanks for tuning into the show that goes around the continent to bring you stories near and far. I'm Chamberlain Uso at Channels Television here in Lagos. I'm joined by Esther Githo-Ewart from Voice of America in Washington.
Thanks. I'm Esther Githo-Ewart, happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, the Voice of America has reduced staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. So as you see, our broadcast looks a little different for now. We appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Chamberlain Uso in Lagos brings you that story.
The National Agricultural Land Development Authority, NALDA, says it will provide about 10,000 hectares of land and establish rice mills in Adamawa State to boost farming activities. This was disclosed by the Executive Secretary and Chief Executive Officer of NALDA, Paul Okoli, during working visits of farming communities in Adamawa State.
Agriculture is the mainstay of about 80% of the inhabitants of Adamawa State and occupies an important position in the state's economy. The ecological condition of the state permits cultivation of root crops, horticulture, and rearing of livestock in large numbers. In order to harness the full potentials of the vast arable lands, officials of the National Agricultural and Land Development Authority, NALDA, an intervention program of the federal government on agriculture, is meeting with farmers in Adamawa State to educate them on how to achieve maximum yield.
The message said go to all the communities and develop their land and make the people rich. It's an instruction. I have no choice. We must keep to it.
Some of the farmers, however, expressed their concerns, while the Adamawa State government assures them of its commitment to the program.
We find that most of our farmers are operating on either hired or borrowed land. By the time you get something, the landlord will just clear you out.
We already have our farmers that are being taken care of. Those farmers, the state will continue to take care of them, as has been part of the practice. While that of NALDA, we are trying to look into new farmer groups that will assist why the federal government assisting the state government through the new farmer groups.
After the interaction, the team proceeds to inspect some of the lands retrieved and those donated to NALDA.
The wet season farming is going to be holistic in that the whole 21 local governments are going to be captured. But what we are trying to do is that we are picking some farmers from each of these local governments to be able to support them and then ensure that they benefit from this program.
Apart from preparation of the lands, farmers will be supported with farm inputs, supervising of the planting and purchase of the farm produce after harvest.
Let's get more on this story from an agricultural consultant, African farmer Mogaji. Thanks for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
What impact is this initiative by NALDA likely going to have on the federal government's food security plan?
The action to open more land is likely to get us more to being food secure because it's a welcome development. More people can come into the sector, and that means that we're creating employment and the possibility of feeding ourselves.
NALDA is making lands available for farmers and also setting up rice mills to boost food sufficiency. What else do these farmers need in order to reap a bountiful harvest?
Yes, so land is primary. It doesn't necessarily talk about being successful in production. We need more productivity. That means the farmers need top-of-the-art equipment. They need mechanization, even more than they need the land. And we need investments into the logistics, that's transportation value chain. If we have better seeds, mechanization, and logistics in place, then we would have a success of that program. But without those three and just opening land, we won't record any major success.
Well, it turns out that most times the attention on equipping rural farmers in a bid to boost the country's agri sector. What about farming in urban areas? How can this be developed?
Well, yeah, there needs to be a very strong campaign from government, so everybody can have a small garden or plant their basic crops in their premises or utilize undeveloped lands across board. So, but we need a very strong campaign for that to happen because people are busy in the urban centers, and we need to adopt more technologically advanced production like vertical farming, greenhouse farming, and co.
Well, finally, we know that the world, Nigeria inclusive, battling COVID-19 pandemic. What impact, if you could give us a picture, that this has had on the country's food supply chain, and how do you suggest we cushion the effect, since no one knows when this could be completely over?
Yes, the pandemic has had a very hard challenge on the sector. Most of all the inputs we use, they are imported from developed countries. And so the pandemic made them lock down, so meaning we couldn't get the inputs we need. And also the price of dollar volatility is also affecting the sector a lot. And even distribution locally, like the poultry sector has been badly hit and continues to be hit with that. However, what needs to happen is that we need to be more efficient and effective in distribution and curbing post-harvest losses, meaning everything that is produced should get to the table of the consumer or get to the factory to be processed. If we focus on avoiding waste, then we will be able to take care of our food security. We'll be able to create more jobs across the value chain.
All right, then, Mr. African Farmer Mogaji, thank you for joining us today on Africa 54.
Thank you for having me.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. After the break, with the reopening of Nigerian schools and a rise in COVID-19 cases, health authorities urge caution. Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Esther Githo-Yuart in Washington. Nigerian authorities reopened schools across the country on January 18th, despite a jump in confirmed cases of COVID-19. But while millions of students are excited to return to class, health authorities urge caution. Timothy Obiezu reports from Abuja.
Linguistics student Esther Ajayi had just started her freshman year when COVID-19 hit last year and closed her Abuja school for months. Nigerian authorities allowed schools to reopen despite a rise in the number of coronavirus cases.
I feel happy resuming back to school because, to be sincere, it was boring staying at home. So, me resuming back to school today, I have the opportunity to meet some of my friends again.
Besides COVID-19, unresolved payment disputes between Nigerian authorities and teachers also delayed school resumption last year, but both parties reached an agreement in December. But not everyone is pleased about the schools reopening. Nigerian health unions say conditions are still too dangerous.
Then you are risking those kids, you're risking the teachers, you're risking the families, and at the end of the day, who are going to suffer is we, the healthcare providers. We are going to suffer. We have more work on our hands.
Many Abuja schools recorded low attendance days after Nigeria reported its highest daily number of coronavirus infections, over 1,800 cases. School authorities are operating shorter hours and using social media platforms to send lesson notes to students. Every school is expected to create its own student-led COVID-19 task force and monitor students' compliance with measures to prevent the spread of the virus. Muhammad Buhari is the student union president at Zuba College of Education in Abuja.
So they will be in charge to enforce the law of COVID-19 protocol in every school. They will be the one going around to see how the students are doing in the campuses, because staying at home is doing us more harm.
While schools are staying open for now, authorities say they will monitor COVID-19 cases in coming weeks to see if they need to reconsider. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja.
The chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Mr. Boss Mustafa, has asked Nigerians to reject conspiracy theories on COVID-19 vaccines, as they will be properly screened by the National Agency for Food, Drug Administration and Control. The PTA boss also says the government will do all it can to ensure that at least 70% of the population is vaccinated against the virus.
As nations all over the world scramble for COVID-19 vaccines in a bid to curb the spread of coronavirus, anti-vaccine campaigners are also busy online and offline, sowing doubts in the minds of vulnerable people. On social media, conspiracy theorists allege without proof that the vaccine can change people's DNA. Also, some claim that the coronavirus pandemic is a cover for a plan to implant trackable microchips, and the Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates is behind it.
Well, definitely the presence of social media plus a pandemic is a combination that's never been tried before. And nobody would have predicted that I and Dr. Fauci would be so prominent in, really kind of evil theories about, did we create the pandemic? Are we trying to profit from it? And on and on. And so, I'm very surprised by that. I hope it goes away. I hope it doesn't hold back, mask wearing or seeking out vaccines.
Here in Africa, Tanzanian President John Magufuli has warned citizens against receiving the COVID-19 vaccines, saying without proof that vaccinations are dangerous. Instead, health officials are promoting steam inhalation and use of herbs as remedy for the virus. Sadly, the death toll keeps rising globally as new strains of the virus are discovered. Worried about the rising numbers and fatalities in Nigeria, the chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Mr. Boss Mustafa, says soon no one will be allowed to travel to any part of the world without vaccination. According to him, the world is embracing vaccination and Nigeria should not be left out.
They don't need vaccines to kill us. We eat too much of what they produce. They can kill us through those things. There's hardly anything that is on your table that is not imported. We will do everything to ensure that vaccines are made available to every qualified Nigerian. And our intention is that in 2021, we will vaccinate at least 40% of the population. And in 2022, vaccinate another 30% of the population.
The National Primary Healthcare Development Agency is also seeking the cooperation of faith-based leaders ahead of the arrival of the vaccines in Nigeria later this month.
From previous public health crises, from polio eradication, that the actions of faith leaders influence people's values, attitudes, behaviors, and actions.
It is also not good to show reckless confidence by some faith leaders that COVID-19 is non-existent and is not for anybody Christian. We have seen Christians who die very close to us.
During vaccine development, safety trials begin in the laboratory with tests and research on cells and animals before moving on to human studies. Scientists say the principle is to start small and only move to the next stage of testing if there are no outstanding safety concerns.
Tanzanian President John Magufuli is decrying vaccines and says he is not planning a lockdown in his country because God will protect people from COVID-19. Lauren Anthony reports.
Tanzania's President John Magufuli has dismissed the benefits of vaccines and said no lockdown is planned in his country, as God will protect the people from COVID-19. Speaking in Western Tanzania on Wednesday, Magufuli claims homespun precautions such as steam inhalation were better than vaccines. Vaccines are not good, he said, adding that if they were, quote, the white man would have brought vaccines for HIV and AIDS. His views contradict global scientific consensus and advice from the World Health Organization. Africa is currently struggling to secure enough vaccines for countrywide inoculation programs for its 1.3 billion people, while wealthier parts of the world have reportedly stockpiled surplus doses running into the hundreds of millions. Magufuli's speech is not the first time he has courted controversy during the coronavirus pandemic. His government has drawn criticism for its secretive response, and the president has previously asked Tanzanians to pray the coronavirus away.
A Kenyan entrepreneur has developed a machine that recycles discarded plastic waste into paving stones for use in construction projects. Zamdi Mate's factory keeps plastics out of landfills and offers a cheaper alternative to conventional concrete paving slabs.
Zambi Mati hauls a brick hard against the school footpath made using her recycled plastic bricks in the Kenyan capital. It does not crack.
Our product is almost 5 to 7 times stronger than the concrete, and this is because of the basic material structure of the brick itself. Our pavers, because they're made out of recycled plastic, and plastic is polymerous in nature, or rather it's thread-like. So therefore it doesn't have a lot of pocket holes, therefore making it less brittle compared to concrete. So that's why it doesn't break very easily.
Her factory produces 1,500 bricks per day with dimensions of 120 millimeters and 110 millimeters and depths ranging from 30 millimeters to 80 millimeters. The factory recycles high-density polythene, low-density polythene, and polypropylene waste plastic. Mati, a materials engineer who designed her own machines, says that her factory had recycled 20 tons of waste plastic after she founded her factory in 2017, adding that they plan to add another bigger production line that would at most triple their capacity.
We knew how to make one brick, so we needed to know if we had to bring this product to the market, we needed to know how to make 1,000 or 5,000, because one project cannot be just one brick. So after figuring out how to make one brick, now the next step was how to make 1,000. Making 1,000, we need machines.
The Ministry of Environment and Forestry says Kenya produces 600,000 tons of plastic bottles annually, of which 400,000 tons are used locally, with only 9% of it recycled.
A Kenyan man who was born deaf has developed a mobile learning application for sign language to help deaf children learn online during the COVID-19 pandemic. Victoria Munga reports from Nairobi.
For 13-year-old deaf student Stephanie Njeri, remote learning during the COVID-19 pandemic could have been quite difficult. But thanks to the Kenya Sign Language KSL finger spelling application, she has been able to keep up with her studies.
It is easy for me when I am doing my homework and revision on my own. When my parents forget to finger spell, it helps to remind them.
Njeri's parents help her study while the KSL finger spelling app helps them communicate.
During homework sessions, you'll find that there are things she wants me to assist, but if she tries to sign to me, I'm not able to comprehend exactly what she needs. So she'll open the app and she'll start showing me, this is what I need.
The application was developed during the pandemic by Hudson Asiema, who was himself born deaf, to help Kenya's 4,000 deaf school children with remote learning.
Because we didn't have a lot of these apps that are centered for children accessible offline. When you compare the same with the hearing kids, now they have a lot of apps that they can access for them to learn easy basics of language like alphabets.
The disability organization Enable helped Asiema develop the app.
Where Enable is coming in is to help develop this app, or to help link up the designer or the developer with the specialists from across the world, so that the app is enabled to have more features, to be more friendly even to the younger one.
Deaf community leaders in Kenya say the technology has improved learning among deaf students.
And it will sort out the issue of children staying at home and not learning sign language. And through this app, it's something which is very technical, because they'll have to use their phone. And it will be very helpful to the deaf.
While the app was designed for deaf students learning at home, students are finding it useful even after returning to school this month. Victoria Amunga for VOA News, Nairobi.
We have this one is P.
And that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Check it out. I'm Esther Githo-Ewart in Washington. Channels Television has our last word from Lagos.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. Remember, channelstv.com is your source for news and other programming. I'm Train Belinuso. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.